Welcome to Get to Know May, an exclusive interview with May Saengpraseuth Alirad, the author of Was I Assaulted, and founder of Dalal Coaching, a sex assault survivor's healing and recovery session practice. My name is Edgar Jimenez, May's business mentor. Today I'm honored to help you know May on a personal and more insightful level than covered in the book. This interview is only available to those of you who've purchased the book, so welcome. And best wishes on your well-deserved healing journey. Welcome, May.
Hello, Edgar. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. And it's an honor not only to have this conversation with you, but also to give all of those readers out there a chance to really get a better sense of who you are and maybe a little bit of a backstory to many parts of your book. As deep as you go in your book, there's a lot more, and I think people will want to get to know you. So I have a sequence of questions. I'll be glancing every now and then at these questions, but let's give everyone a chance to get to know you. All right, so May, how did your parents meet, and how did their upbringing and relationship lead to your birth?
My parents met in Laos. My father was 8 years older than my mom. So when they met, she was about 19 and he was about 26, 27 at that time. And I think it was kind of love at first sight for my dad. And so he really pursued my mom. And it's funny because he was a rather handsome fellow when he was younger, and all the ladies would, he had a lot of female advances, but he would always shy away from them. But then when he met my mom, he really gravitated to her and, wanted to, would go and visit her house, and back then in the country of Laos, it was very old school. So, everybody lived in one house, the parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, and there was one room, like the bedroom. Everybody slept in the same living quarters, and there was like one living room, no walls or anything, open, no wall
No
living room.
privacy.
Right, no privacy. And so my dad would, when he was off work, he would come and visit her. And so they wrote letters to each other for a few months, and then shortly after that, they got married.
Oh, I say. And they got married in Laos.
Yes, they got married in Laos, and 5 years later, my my mom had my sister, and then I came 4 or 5 years later after that. So I'm the second of three
I
children.
say. So tell us about the circumstances and opportunity that drove your family to migrate from Laos to Elgin, Illinois, where you grew up.
Yeah, so we came because of the refugee war. So the reason why we resettled in Elgin is because Elgin is the capital of Laos, Vientiane's sister city. So they had a partnership. So when the war came, there was a huge exodus to the city of Elgin. There were thousands that came at the time, 10, 20,000 Lao people came into the city. And so there were a lot of resources that were set up to accommodate because people started coming in the mid 70s. My family and I, we didn't come until 1989. So we would be what you call the latter wave of the refugees.
I say. So, what was your first happy memory you had about your mom and dad before your assault?
My first happy memory, I would say, was watching Ninja Turtle and getting on my back and spinning on my back like Ninja Turtles.
And your parents knew what Ninja Turtle was?
Yeah, it was on TV. All of us watched it.
Oh, that's so cute. That's so cute. Can you tell us more about what you enjoyed about your childhood?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't last long. But I I was 4 years old when we came to the States here. And so my parents would take us to the YWCA. And at that time, they had a huge refugee settlement grant. So a lot of services and resources were allocated to refugees, such as learning English as a second language. And especially for us, when I came to the US, I didn't know any English at all. And so they had classes for kids, they had classes for the parents. So it was very inclusive. And I also remember going to church. And the Laotian parents would put their children on the church bus to not learn about Jesus, but to learn English. So
Wow,
we went on the church bus in hopes of improving our English language.
I see. Well, since it was you were involved with the church and your family was involved, what was your view of Christ when you were a child, and how did that evolve as you became an adult?
Yeah, I remember having a dream. So I started, like I shared earlier, I started going to church at around 4. And so I think I was in the Sunday school. I'm not sure about how my understanding was as a little person, but I do remember around the time that I was sexually assaulted around 6 or 7, I remember having a dream. And I do put this in the book. This is an excerpt in there, a dream about how there was danger everywhere, but I was holding Jesus's hand. And whenever dangerous snakes or whatever came, he would strike it down with his staff. And that's a memory or a dream that has really kept me. And I remember it so vividly. It's over 30 years now. That dream really helped to keep me grounded, that whatever happens, that Christ is always going to be there holding my hand.
I see. Okay, no, thank you for sharing that. Um, so, what in your upbringing or family beliefs drove you to internalize or not report your sexual assault at the age of 7?
I think one of the reasons may be me not having that, I guess what we would call a good relationship with my parents. And what I mean is, from my culture, the Asian culture, there's not a lot of physical affection, right? There's like no hugs or kisses, nobody telling anyone that they love you. So it's a very stoic culture, if I can say that. It's very stoic, and which meant we didn't really talk much either. And I think one of the reasons is because I already wasn't in a talkative relationship with my parents. And I think when this scary thing happened, I didn't feel safe, or I didn't feel comfortable sharing it with them or anyone else.
I see. I see. Did this belief about yourself or your family continue to drive your silence as you got older, or did it evolve?
I feel like it evolved eventually. I didn't tell my mom until I was probably um in my mid 20s, so probably about 10 years ago. I think 10 years ago was when I finally came out and told my mom. And I just told my dad just this year, actually, when I was writing the book. I was just like, just so you know, I put my dirty laundry out there into the universe. And my parents have always been really supportive in that way. So what happened was, we had, I guess, a crisis in our family. So in the year 2006, my father had a stroke. So because of his stroke, he lost all the English language. Because English is his second language. So basically, he learned, everything before the stroke. He remembers my birth, he remembers when I was 1, he remembers when I was 2, and all of these stories. But the stroke really impacted his short-term memory, so he lost the English language. And so after that, I that was a very traumatic point in my life. And after that, I decided that I don't care about culture, I don't care about customs. I'm gonna hug my parents and I'm gonna tell them that I love them. And I was really the first one to break those barriers down of that stoicness, because I didn't want my dad to die and him to not know that I love him. So I think I was really the one that broke that barrier, because like I didn't want him to die and never know, or me get a chance to tell him. So
Certainly. So, upon reflection of your past relationships, which of course you talk about in your book, uh, up until you met your husband, um, what did your abusers have in common that you can now recognize?
I would say that they took advantage of me. They took advantage of my meekness, or of my kindness, or of my niceness, because I, in my mind, was very innocent. I think even though all of these bad things happened, I always tried to give the new person the benefit of the doubt. Like, I wouldn't think like, oh wow, I really want to have sex with this guy, I'm gonna bring him home. That was never my thought with any guy I ever met. And so because of that, I think me being too kind, or me being too, I think, outgoing, that really, I think, gave them the opportunity to take advantage of me. So I
Uh,
think it was more about me and less about them.
do you feel though that these abusers had an agenda originally, or do you feel that their perspective changed when they got to know you? Meaning that as readers in your book will try to only not only reflect on their life and who they date or who they're with and who could be abusers or are abusers. Just curious as to a perspective you would give, at least based on your experience, on if you were able to turn the clock back, that are there any key things that you'd have seen like, okay, I need to stay away from that guy or abuser, whereas now you've found your husband and you're happily married. There's something was different, and just wondering if you had a chance to pin that down upon reflection.
Yeah, I think one of the things would have to be their sense of control, of trying to control me. Like, for example, I mean, obviously, not all of them, but I would say the overwhelming majority of my abusers, they would try to control me. Like, for example, say things like, well, if I call you, you better pick up the phone. Or if I text you, you better respond right away. So it was like feeling like always on eggshells, or always on edge. Like the things that um they wanted me to do was not seemingly organic to me. And I think sometimes women may think it's like, oh, they care about me, or oh my goodness, they like me so much that they want me to answer all the time. But really, it was this sense of control. And after some reflection, it was definitely that I should have known, like, okay, something is not right here. Let me kind of back off before they assault me. And I think it was not my better judgment to do so, and which led to me being assaulted.
Okay, no, thank you for sharing that, because I think that helps a lot of people, and I would say anyone. It could be even from a bad boss or a not friendly neighbor, that someone who's controlling is likely to be an abuser. Okay, no, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, May. So, what about these abusers attracted you to stay with them in the relationship?
I I had to ask myself this question too. And I still don't know the answer, but I did read some articles that I feel like, that could have been the reason why. I think one of the reasons had to do with my self esteem. That because I was abused so often in my life, that I didn't really think highly of myself. And I do go into a chapter of the low self-esteem in my book, and I think that was one of the reasons why I stayed, that because I didn't value myself. Like I didn't put myself as I am the child of the most high God, right? I was probably like thinking like I'm a servant, like, and afraid of missing the next big thing. I think because this person was so cool, or this person was so nice, and oh, this could be my husband. I think also that fear of being alone kept me with my abusers. I think another reason may be not even recognizing that I was a victim. So not even knowing or classifying myself as a victim. So you're asking me, why did I stay? And I'm saying, well, why wouldn't I? This person loves me. This person cares about me, spends money on me, buys me things, but it wasn't until after reflection time that I was like, oh my gosh, like I was raped, like I was assaulted, so I think some of it has to do with just unknowingly being with them because you think they're still a good guy or a good person, like although this one thing happened, like not wanting to, oh well, he raped me, or like this thing happened, you're not classifying it as rape, but this thing happened, but it was just this one time, and he's always been nice after that or whatever. So I think it's just not even aware.
Would this also not only include sexual assault in this case, but was any of it physically abusive?
So I was in a abusive relationship once, um, and that was in my early 20s, and I think we were in a sense abusive towards each other. I think if that makes sense. So he was abusing me physically, I was physically abusing him, he was emotionally abused. So it was just a very toxic relationship. I had just gotten out of a really bad relationship, and I rebounded into this new relationship, and I think it was just very toxic for the both of us. So
I see. What was the tipping point each time that pushed you to break off each of these relationships?
the thing is that I wasn't always the initiator of breaking it off. So although they assaulted me, although they abused me, I wasn't always the one that cut them off. And I remember this one time, like this guy clearly raped me, and it was my boyfriend at that time. And it took him to break up with me, although he raped me, for me to get out of that relationship. So it was
So in these
something.
breakups, it was both sides. Each, I see. Okay. Um, so what gave you optimism to start a relationship each time with these eventual abusers? So in this case, various reasons you broke up or they broke up with you, and there was the next relationship. What gave you optimism that enabled you to have a new relationship? Because at times, you see stuff in social media or even friends who hate men for various reasons or hate women. But in this case, your optimistic nature seemed to empower you and enable you to go to a new relationship. So, curious about what gave you that optimism.
I think it was wanting to have a family. I think it was my desire to get married and start a family. I think that was, and I knew I didn't want to start it with a woman. I mean, so obviously it had to be with a man. So I think it was like this desire of wanting to have a family. And I think, Edgar, I think I want to add that also to my list of reasons why I stayed, to see if maybe, okay, they did this, but maybe they'll change, maybe they'll be a good father. And so I think just my optimism of family starting.
Sure, sure. Is there advice to women seeking relationships and how to avoid bad relationships sooner, or or so they can be safer and happier?
Yes, read the chapter on boundaries. So I write a whole chapter about it called Boundaries. And one of the key takeaways is that I think we as women, we just trust too soon. We just fall in love way too soon. And I know it was written somewhere. It said, I'm gonna trust you until you give me a reason not to trust you. But I want you to change your mind and think this way instead. I'm gonna not trust you until you give me a reason to trust you. So have distrust in everyone until they give you a reason to trust you. Because once you give someone that trust, then now you're opening yourself up, right? Now they have entered the holies of holies. Okay, I'm not talking about the vagina, I'm just talking about your heart, right? They have entered your heart. And once you give someone that trust, then now they are at a different level. Like now they're like consuming your mind. You're thinking about them all the time. They're in your heart. And so that's one of the things that I would go back and tell my younger self, like, sister, like, please don't be so quick to trust anyone, because people are not worthy to be trusted until they give you reasons to trust them. Another advice that I put in the book is do group outings. I don't care if you're 40, 50, 30, 20 years old in college. It doesn't matter. Rape happens to everyone at every age, regardless of any factors, rich, poor, black, white, Asian, whatever. Like, it happens to everyone, so being able to establish those healthy boundaries and making sure that you are going in group outings, not trusting people so fast, are definitely things that I would tell my younger self.
I see. No, it's good advice today. Um, so, did your relationship with Christ ebb and flow with your relationships?
Absolutely, it did. And because of my relationship with Christ, whenever that was actually one of the reasons why I chose to be celibate for extended periods of my life. So I would go 2, 3, 4 years without having sex, and then someone would rape me. And then now it's like, I got to start over again. And so, whenever, like, this place of sexuality was a very confusing place for me because I wanted to be in this relationship with Christ and really make him proud of me. But then whenever these different things happened, it made me feel like I went backwards, like I backslid. Like, oh man. And it was this constant state of repentance, this constant state of messing up, this constant state of trying to get it right with God. And it was, I think, in a sense, like emotionally draining, to have to always keep doing that, but not on God's side, but on my side, because I wanted desperately to do better. Like, I wanted desperately to be in a better place and have a healthy relationship. And it wasn't until I went to therapy that I realized 98% of my sexual encounters had been unhealthy. Like, it was not healthy sex. And I think that kind of says something.
Certainly. So what do you say to people who think you should be mad at God for allowing this to happen to you?
I had a revelation. So I asked my pastor that question. It's a married couple, Dr. C and Dr. J. I asked them, I said, why would God allow a child like me? I was 6 or 7. Why would God allow that to happen to me? That someone would violate me in that way, stick his hand down my pants. Like, why would that happen? And they really started me down this path of trying to understand God and how it's not God that lets it happen. It's more people are doing evil things. Like people are just doing bad things. And so about 3 years ago, I had this revelation and I was spending time with God. I was in prayer and meditation and I saw this vision. I saw this vision that God was looking down at me when it was happening, the school bus, the young man, and he was so sad and sorrowful. I mean, it was like it it looked like it hurt him to his core, it hurt him to his heart. And I have a daughter. She's 2 now, and I cannot imagine the hurt that I would feel to have to witness something like that happen to my daughter. I would be broken into 1,000 pieces. So what that showed me was God, being the best father of all, being the fathers of all fathers, wouldn't allow that to happen. Like, no, he didn't allow it to happen. It happened because of the wickedness of people's hearts. That's why it happened. And he just had to endure watching this. And so when I saw that, and when that revelation really imparted in me, it really helped me to understand that a loving father would never allow, like, and I want you to think about it in your own life. If you have a child, would you allow someone to rape your child? If you had the power to stop them, would you allow that to happen? Any good parent, okay, you don't have to be great parent. Any good parent would say no, absolutely not. And if God is the best father of all, why would he also allow that? So we as Christians or as people in general really need to change our mindset about that no, it's not God that allows it to happen. Because if you go back, if you believe the Bible, I know some of us here are Christians, if we believe the Bible at all, God gave us dominion. God gave men dominion on earth. So what does that mean? That means God has given us power and control over the earth. That means he doesn't have anything to do with it. And we essentially are the hands and feet of God, or the hands and feet of the devil, right? So our hands and our feet are the ones that's going to carry on this action. We could use it for goodness, or we can use it for badness. So
I, no, thank you for that reflection. Um, so, what was the key breakthrough, though, for you personally, or psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually, that led you to bravely share your healing journey? You share so much in your book, and even as you're sharing right now as we talk, what was the key breakthrough for you?
I think it came in stages. I think the first stage was starting January of 2018 when I started coming under the teachings of my church, Embassies of Christ. And when I came under the teaching, they were teaching about faith and healing. And so I always thought faith is just faith in God, and healing was physical healing, in your body. And but the pastors taught something a little bit different, and they taught that you can have faith, that you can change your situations, like faith to change your situations, like faith to speak life into your own life. Like if you want something, you speak it out. Like, what is it that you want? So they would say what you want to see. And so I started speaking things, I started believing things and then ultimately I started believing that I deserve to be healed, that Jesus wants me healed, and that healing is possible for me. And for so long, I didn't think it was. For so long, I felt like I had gone too far, I had done too much, that there was no turning back. But I came to a place where I started believing and having faith that I want to be healed, that God wants me healed. And then after that, it took about 2.5 years from when I first started hearing that teaching that I had my September 13th, 2020 moment. And that is I call it my first step on my self actualization journey of healing. When I was praying with one of my friends, and at that moment, she had prayed me out of that spirit of shame, guilt, fear, condemnation, depression. Everything that was associated with sexual assault was gone. It just disappeared. And at that moment, I said to God, yes, yes, God, to telling my story in whatever platform, in whatever way, just yes. And we fast forward into February when I was like really settled down, and I was like, I'm going to write this book. And within 3 weeks, I had my first draft. But I had been trying to write this book for 10 years. So this same book I had been trying to write for 10 years, and I finished the first draft in 3 weeks. So I'm like, yeah, that was a God work, And everything just really fell into place. And I shared on my social media. And the thing that has been most rewarding to me are the individuals that have reached out to me and told me about their experience. And shared with me that they too have been a victim, and also how with me sharing it has given them courage to even tell me, like I may have been the first person they ever told. So that's a huge honor. I'm just like so honored to be here, so honored to be in this place, this position, that people would come to me and confide in me and tell me things. It's really amazing.
No, thank you. Who is Little May? Can you tell us about Little May?
Little May. So Little May is my 6 or 7 year old self. So I call her Little May. She's my little first grader. And um yeah, Little May. You know, I was trying to pretend Little May didn't exist, because if she existed, then that means everything that happened to me was real. And so for the majority of my life, I didn't want to acknowledge her. I didn't want to acknowledge the person at that place at that time that was sexually assaulted. And so I lived with repressing that part of me for so long. And in my book, I call it compartmentalizing. And so what ended up happening was, it was about 3 years ago. So 2018 was a very significant year in my life. Like I started a new church. I was getting more revelations from God. And that same year, I had a dream. And I dreamt, and I wrote this in the book, but I'll share it. I had a dream that I was at a church, my old church, the church that I actually met my husband from. That's funny. Um, and it was Living Gospel Church of God in Christ, and in Elgin. And so I had a dream that I was giving a sermon, and as I was giving it, this little child, this little girl comes up, and she's about to walk up on the stage. And she looks familiar, but I'm like, whose child is this? I'm thinking like, whose baby is this that's coming on stage right now? And so she walks up the stage, and she has her arms like extended wide open like this. And I'm very nice. If anyone knows me, they know I'm extremely nice. I'm probably too nice sometimes. And so I didn't want to embarrass her, so I bend down and I give her a hug. And as our bodies embraced each other in my dream, I just felt this sense of warmth and love, and I didn't know why. And every time, and I was crying in my dream. I was just crying, like tears just started coming. And then I wake up and I tell my sister about it, and I'm crying still. And I'm like, why am I so crying? I'm confused as to why I'm like so emotional about giving this little girl a hug. And I realized that that was little May. Little May came out of my subconscious mind into my conscious dream mind and made her appearance. And by her giving me that hug, it was as if she was saying to me, I know everything that you've done. Like all the life that you lived, all the pain that you went through. I know it, but I still love you. And it was amazing because I'm like, wow, like if she can still love me despite of all the things that she's seen me go through, all the things, because although I didn't acknowledge her, she's always been inside me. But it was as if she was saying, like, I accept you. I accept you for who you are, for who you've become. I accept you in all your glory. And for the first time, I think I was able to accept her. And I was able to accept the pain that she went through. And I was able to accept that this is what happened. And this is the little person that I've been trying to hide and run away from, which is actually me. And it was so powerful. It was such a powerful dream.
What has become of your life's purpose? Like, what would you say is the best way to help the little Mays out there?
I would say that the place that I'm at right now, this place of healing, I want to help all the little Mays and the big Mays get to this place that I'm at right now because I just have so much peace. I have so much freedom. All the shackles of shame, guilt, bondage, all of those shackles are off my arms and legs. Like I'm just free. If I could, I would be floating out of my seat right now because of just how free I feel. And I want to give this to everyone. I want everyone to know that this freedom that I have, that you can have it too. It's not an exclusive thing that only one out of every million people find. That no, everyone, regardless of the time length, regardless of how long it's been, can find this freedom. You just need to work on it. You just need the skills, right? You just need the knowledge of how to get there. So and I really believe that my book will help you get to that point or beginning your steps to healing.
Sure. What should those who are parents, friends, relatives, partners of sexual survivors, what should they keep in mind as they elect to be part of the lives of those that they love who've been sexually abused?
I would say coming in a spirit of empathy, like not sympathy, but empathy. And empathy is, Brea Brown says it best in her YouTube video on empathy. And when someone tells you something that's really big, okay, like being sexually assaulted, how you should respond is like this: I'm so happy you told me. I don't even know what to say, but I'm so happy you told me. And those are very empathetic words that would make someone open up and share with you what's going on. And I would say also coming and being in a spirit of compassion and grace, right? So questions that you shouldn't be asking, like you should not ask, is what were you wearing? Were you drunk? Were you high? Like those questions are not helpful. Those questions actually are victim blaming questions. And so I would say, please don't ever ask those questions. You think it if you want, But don't ask those questions, because what it does is it makes the victim shut down even more. So because they came out and told you, give them that space to talk about it, to share, and then also, if they're ready, offer some suggestions, and tell them that, hey, here are your options, and I'm here to support you in whatever option you choose, whether that's to go to the police, whether that's not, whether that's therapy, that let that be their choice. Because if
Certainly.
you force it on them, then now you're, in a sense, assaulting them also, because you're telling them, I know what's better for you than you do. And you're going to add more harm to already a sensitive situation. So I never reported any of my assault because of my own reasons. Maybe people won't believe me. One of the people that assaulted me was a police officer. I mean, like, it was a lot. It was a lot of different things, and so I didn't report it. And I think if someone had pushed me and made me do it, I think it would have been more traumatic for me, especially at that time in my life. So just go with what they want. Go with what in their mind they know what's best for themselves. They know what they can handle, they know what they can't. Just be that listening ear.
No, thank you for sharing, May, because a lot of readers of this book may be the loved ones and not have been abused themselves. But this perspective is important to understand. And even in your book, you have a very rich list of resources that could be utilized to better heal or better address these abuses. So thank you for sharing that perspective. Um, so, so now when it comes down to if how can someone who needs your coaching and guidance reach out to you to get help?
Yes, please reach out to me if you need it. You can visit me on my website, www.delaocoaching.com. That's DELAOCOACHING.com. Also, my personal email address is may@delaocoaching.com, and I will respond to you personally. And we also have monthly Was I Assaulted series, and it's about sexual assault awareness, education, and prevention. So we host that on the fourth Sunday of every month. That's free. However, if you would like more in-depth group coaching sessions or individual sessions, we do have a calendar for you to sign up. And so I'll be looking forward to hearing from you.
Sure. And then, what do you ask of readers of your book to take away from what you shared today, and uh, and how to best use the reflections section in the book?
So, the first thing I would say is make sure you read the prologue. I know we don't like to read the prologue because it's like, well, if it was important, it would be in chapter one. No, read the prologue. Read the prologue and the epilogue, because it really sets the stage for my story. So, please read that. I feel like you would be more in tuned, and it will really help you throughout the sessions of the book. And additionally, I put in there in the prologue instructions on how to read the book. So, what I'm recommending is that you would read a chapter a week and reflect on it, what you just read. Each chapter has about 3 or 4 reflections. So, really, in that week, taking time to read through it, to reflect on your own life, right? Because the reflections are not my life, the reflections are your life. So it's your turn to write a book too. So I wanted to give everyone an opportunity, because it's a way of healing by sharing your story, even if you don't share it to another human being, that you're sharing it out somewhere, that this is an outlet. Journaling, writing is an outlet. So it's really a healing tool that people can use. So,
Sure. Okay. No, thanks. And then, are there any parting words you would like to share with our audience today?
So there is one. There is one, and it is my epilogue. And I wanted to share this just in case some people are rebellious and don't want to read it. I think you should, but I will share it. So this is the epilogue. I am so elated that this book found its way in your hands. It was written for you to read at this very moment in your life. It came to you when you were ready to receive the content inside. I hope this book has provided you with the skills you need to be a better parent, partner, sibling, child, or person. I hope it has also given you a sense of connectedness. You are not the only one who has gone through what you have, and you are not alone. Therefore, if you haven't done so already, give yourself permission to start talking about it with someone. It could be a therapist, family member, or close friend. I hope this book has empowered you to find the voice that was taken from you and begin to take control of your life. I saw it written that God can turn your ashes into beauty. This is so powerful in my healing journey in two ways. First, I realized that all the ugly things in my life that I had been trying to hide or pretend weren't there, God could turn it into something beautiful. For me, this book and my business are the beautiful things that God created from all the ugly associated with being assaulted. Then my mentor, that's you, Edgar, but I didn't put that. I just put then my mentor. Then my mentor, after reviewing my book, said it's like the phoenix rising from the ashes. I didn't know what that meant until I looked it up. The phoenix is a mythical bird that at the end of its life goes back to its nest to die, being consumed by fire. But then a new phoenix is born from the ashes of the old one. And like the bird, you have to die to rise from your old ways and how you used to do things. Essentially, dying to burn your connections to the past. But from those ashes, you can rise up again into a new, more powerful being. That is what you are doing. You are confronting your past, burning it, not letting it control you anymore, and rising again to be a new and better you. You are a phoenix soaring above your ashes and who you used to be. You are stronger, braver, and wiser than you were. So fly high in your new found strength, courage, and wisdom today.
That's a great prologue. Um, Thank you, May. Thank you very much for sharing. And thank you, everyone, for being part of this exclusive interview and getting really to know May. Uh, when you go to the website, alowcoaching.com, you'll be able to get regular updates. But again, May, and those of all of you, have a wonderful evening, day, week, year. And thank you for being here. All right. Good night, May.
Thank you. Good night.